It's fall here in the US, and that means football season's in full effect, and many of us are starting to put the boats up. But why not combine two of your favorite pastimes, kind of like this Cleveland Browns fan did when he wound up tossing a beverage from the banks of the river to a passing by commercial vessel who just happened to have a crew member on board who was willing to go out there and catch it. Just one of the crazy things we'll see on this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us up to Illinois and the Rock River, where this was the scene about 2 weeks ago during the holiday weekend when a man decided to take his pontoon boat out onto the river for his first time ever. When all of a sudden he got a pretty unexpected surprise when he wound up hitting some debris in the water and actually flipping the pontoon over and temporarily trapping the captain underneath the vessel. Fortunately for the captain of the boat, some local bystanders saw the incident occur and quickly jumped into the water, helping get the captain free from underneath the boat. Fortunately, due to the local bystanders, the captain wound up surviving this incident, and it is a wild scene to watch. Local law enforcement did arrive on the scene and have started to try and piece together exactly what happened to cause this incident, and have stated that at this time, no charges have been filed against the captain of the vessel until the investigation is completed. But here we can see the vessel's moving at a pretty good rate of speed, and we can see they wind up hitting a partially submerged tree, causing the vessel to flip over. At this time, authorities haven't mentioned whether alcohol or anything like that played a role in the incident, but we do have one lucky captain here. Thankfully, there was somebody who saw this incident. If nobody would have been around, I think we'd have a very different story today. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to France, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago. This wild scene occurred to the New Zealand sailing team during the first day of racing over in the France Sail Grand Prix in Saint-Tropez, when all of a sudden the crew had just finished the first day's race when New Zealand's wing wound up collapsing on the vessel. Fortunately, as wild as these images are, all the crew members were accounted for and no injuries were reported. One of the team's crew members was asked after the incident about what happened.
The whole wing snapped in half. So yeah, I think we were just incredibly lucky. Everyone was on the starboard side of the yacht, and the main element cleared us and the middle element went straight backwards. So I think right now we're just incredibly thankful everyone's safe.
As they mentioned, all the crew was safe, which is the key, and they actually had a pretty good day of racing up until that point, as they'd finished first place in the first event, 5th and 6th in the other two events, leaving them in second place overall before this incident occurred. Hopefully the New Zealand sailing team can get everything back together and back on track shortly. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Texas, where this was the scene this past week when the Coast Guard wound up assisting 3 boaters who found themselves stranded on a jetty near Galveston this past week. The Coast Guard Command Center received a call around 8:30 a.m. from a concerned family member claiming that 3 of their relatives had been out on a fishing trip and called to let them know that the boat became disabled and they were out stuck on the peninsula. The Coast Guard quickly launched a 29-foot response boat, and an MH-65 Dolphin helicopter was also launched from Air Station Houston. The Dolphin team was the first one to arrive on the scene and spotted the 3 people standing on the jetty, and fortunately all 3 people had life jackets on. They decided to go ahead and do an airlift, so the Coast Guard went ahead and hoisted the 3 boaters up to the helicopter safely. But here's where things get a little interesting. After a quick inspection by the Coast Guard, no injuries were found on any of the boaters, so instead of bringing them back to the air station, they decided to go ahead and drop them off on a nearby beach, which I found interesting. For those who are in the Coast Guard or who've served before, why would they do this versus just going ahead and flying back to the air station? I'm curious your thoughts. I'm sure there's a reason, possibly another call, maybe the boaters requested to be dropped off on the beach. I'm not 100% sure. As for the boat they were on, the boat owner is currently working with salvage operation teams to try and salvage the vessel back off the jetty. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here, just like Seven Hills Kelly and Riggs did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.